What up, Kaiju content consumers? Today we are going to be ranking all the Nodon from Game Builder Garage in a tier list. I just want to say thank you if you're watching this. Thank you for your support. And we're going to be going through all these Nodons in a tad bit. But first, I need to add a row below. Excuse me. And I'm going to name it I don't use this Nodon. And that's because some of these Nodons are so bad that I never actually use them. Ignore. Alright, so let's start off with Nodon. We're gonna start off with Constant Nodon. I give him an S tier. I'm kind of deciding between S and A. Thing is, you don't always want to use constant. Like, sometimes it does something that are kind of optional, like making background music. But also sometimes you need it for like timers and stuff. So I'm just gonna do it constant. Button press is another S tier because how do you make a game with it? Same with stick Nodon. This is slightly worse. Same with these. Actually, I've never seen this dude. This dude's fine. Tilting Nodon is actually an A tier because I did use her once and it's not just for the tutorials. This guy, D tier. I think I've almost never used that Nodon and I have no idea what this guy is. This guy, I'll give him C tier. Object break Nodon, I give an A tier. You always want to use object break Nodon for like a reset. If you want to, like, when your character dies, it'll like instantly restart or switch games, so like a game over screen. Swap Nodon will be included in this tier list because I added him in, but we're just gonna leave him as he is right now. And yep, object break Nodon's an A. The reason it's not S is because sometimes it's a very hot mess with these things. Like, sometimes it's very hard to understand how to use them. So obviously next up is on start, C tier. You might want it for like the beginning of a race game, or sometimes you want it like, I don't know. It's very nice if you want your game to be more like actual video games than the real life. So I'm gonna plop them up at A tier next to object break. Counter Nodon, I give, once again, an A tier. Counter Nodon's really useful for like a boss fight, like when you need to do multiple of the same thing. The counters are there for you. Map Nodon, B tier. He's really good for just giving out a number. Like if you want to map out, like if you wanted to make him do a punch thing instead of a celebrate thing, you can go into the map Nodon, do a few numbers, and connect it to the action. That's the only thing I've ever used a mapbot for, so I'm just gonna plop him B. Digitize is really useful for making games like Minecraft and Tetris. Nothing else. Square root Nodon, C. He's very, very, very useful until you realize how unuseful they really are. Square roots are good for like stuff. I actually never use them. Same with these guys. This guy, however, I put in A tier. All the angle Nodons actually I think are very good Nodons and useful. Comparisons S tier. And Nodon's S tier. How do you make like a interact button without using Nodon? That's right, you can't. Nodons are great for interacting, and the idea is like there's a touch center that's the first input, and then your button press, which you want to interact, is the second input. And that I just use that. Oh jeez, I hate my phone. Alright, so yeah, and Nodon's just an easy S tier. Let's see. I almost never use Not. I don't even really understand what she does, but like I used her once for a game. That was it. Flag Nodon's really useful. S tier. Flag Nodon is making sure that something is on. So you can use this for making like a flashlight, an interacting thing, stuff like that. There are 2 counter Nodons. I'll just leave them in there. You know what, I'm actually just going to leave them up here. Random Nodon is S tier. I love the idea of random Nodon, which is what I would say if it's not incredibly hard to use him. Random Nodon, I'm giving a B tier, maybe A tier, nah, B tier. B tier because, well, yes, he's useful at times. It's very hard to understand how random Nodon works, so yeah. Timer Nodon's S tier. Actually, no. We have to get these 2 together. This dude is just really useful, once again, for making timers. If you want something to happen and you want like a dramatic effect, and then for something to happen, then the timer Nodon's really useful for that. Yeah. Bullseye's, I give him B tier. He's a really useful Nodon, only for AI though. I've actually only seen people use him for like marker Nodons. In fact, let's get the markers out because they're similar in a way. 1D marker is easily an S tier, mostly because it's so much easier to make AI with it. And then 2D, slightly worse. Where is he? C tier. And then you have this dude, who is the first F in this entire tier list. All right, back to non-marker stuff. Wormhole entrance and wormhole exit are S tier. Once again, they're just great for making your project look easy looking. All right, Comet Nodon, B tier. I mean, it's only really good. It's not even useful to the person making the game. It's useful for the people who are playing it, because like if there's something really cool that they want to recreate, and the coding is just a bunch of things, then it would be nice of you to slap a comment Nodon in. So they're nice. But okay, sound effects Nodon. B tier. He goes in A tier because sound effects, sure, they can start something cool, but there's something about music Nodon that just feels better. Vibration. This one's really funny because the bass vibration setting is so like bassy, man. I was trying it for the first time while petting JoJo, and when I turned the game on, boom, she was out of there. It's really, really loud. So if you're using it for the first time, probably crank down the vibration because it is very messy at first. And for that reason, C tier, no, F tier. It sucks. I don't understand why, let's actually go with B tier. If it's useful for like shooting games and platformers. Retry Nodon. Of course I can't separate the boys, so they have to be together. Retry Nodon is very good for obviously restarting your game. And that's why Swap Nodon will be joining them. And Nodon slightly worse with B tier. She's a better one for dramatic effect. And if you actually want your game to end, then that is what you want to do. Like if you complete the quest or whatever and you want it to be a dramatic effect, she's a lot better. In fact, that's why I'm putting her in A. Because swap game and retry are more for just completely restarting the game. So it's more for like a game over screen than like actually ending the game. So I think It's curtains for you. No. Iron Nodon's F tier. Why would you ever need this thing? Alright, next up, we have this guy. He's just a wannabe stick Nodon. Person is S tier. Don't even argue. It's awesome. Car and UFO, however, are not going to be joining him. Car being B tier and UFO being F tier. Why is that? Well, I think that's because B tier for Car, he's a lot more useful than this dude, but his controls are very awkward. And, well, yes, there was a video by Dave Nodon that teaches you how to take the person and put it into the car. It was very useful. But I feel like it would have been much better if your human if this dude was more like a control set and not its very own thing. So for that reason, that's why it's in B tier. F tier for UFO is, I think you can understand why. He's just really hard to put into games. He's just not fun. Simple boxes and stuff. You can't make a game without them. You can't. Fancy objects are also in S tier. The reason for this isn't because of anything like because I like the way they look. It's only because touch sensors, it still counts if it's invisible and not solid or anything but movable. As long as it's existent, touch sensor sees it. So fancy objects are very useful for making specific things. So if there are multiple players and you want and they're all like person Nodon, and you want something specific to happen with each player, then slap a random fancy object on and then make a touch sensor that scans for that random object. Extending objects, I never really use. I mean, this isn't extending. This is moving objects, and that's why I'm putting it in B tier alongside common Nodon. Okay, these guys, growing objects. Extending objects are a lot more useful than people give it credit for. They're good for loading screens, they're good for stamina meters, they're good for stuff like that. Like those little bars in games that you see a lot, but you don't really care about them that much. These guys are really useful for that. So, not quite a S tier. I'm giving him highest A tier. Alright, effects guys, B tier. Actually, no, S tier. No, A tier. Yeah, let's stick with A tier. The problem with these guys is they do absolutely nothing. They're nice for like beginning a game with like a countdown thing, but whatever. Text objects are easily the best like special object in the game. I'm sorry. The problem with the others, actually I'm not going to get into that yet. These dudes are just really useful for stuff like he's really good for giving out like stuff like instructions. He's good for like scary elements. They're just good overall. Number object will not be joining him in S tier. However, she will be given a B tier. She is very useful for countdown timers, a score setup, but you don't, and unlike like all these guys, you don't really use her in every single game. So that's why I'm giving her only an A tier. I mean a B tier. She's still a really useful Nodon, just not for every game. This dude, I think you should join him. While he doesn't really make an impact on the game, this game will be a lot less fun to play. It's also good for lore, making lore for your own little 20 millibyte game. It's just a useful thing to have around. Like if you're out of text objects, then I guess you could use these guys to use. It's a lot harder to, and it's very good for making your own custom characters. So yeah. Touch sensor is easily the best sensor in the game. No question. Destroying, I have no idea why anyone would use destroying a sensor. So that's why. Destroyed sensor is probably second best, S tier. No, actually. Grabbed sensor is much, much worse. The problem here is that there's something wrong with it. It's just, it doesn't feel good when you're using him. You know, you're very useful too. I think these are definitely the 3 best sensors. These guys will definitely not be joining them. This dude's C tier. I don't really mind him that much. But I've never heard of this dude. This dude, I don't like him. Whatever. D tier. No. These are really useful, actually. I forgot how useful these guys are. String connector is awful. They're useful for making stuff like a rope, but it's very hard to make climbing a thing in this game, so no. Launch object is easily S2. I like launch object. Obviously, it's for like shooting fireballs or shooter game and just stuff like that. It's much easier to make. Destroy objects, S tier. She is very good for like making poison apples. Like poison apples are something that you want to use a lot. Okay. I mean, obviously not specifically poison animals or poison apples are something you're going to be using, but you definitely want to make something like, don't touch this or else you die. This is kind of the only way you can implement it. I'm sure there is some way you can do it, but... Alright, teleport entrance and exit are both A tier. But you don't exactly use them every single game. They are so useful. Attract is awful. Like, it's very weak. World Nodon I use in every single game. Now, some people don't, but it's just like Texture Nodon, it's just a lot less fun if you don't have World Nodon. Also, actually, sometimes you can need it for horror games. Like, it's almost impossible to make a scary horror game during the day. Game screen is S. Camera is S. If you don't use either of these, what is wrong with you? These guys obviously will not be joining because they're not as good. This dude's slightly better though. She sucks. You suck. You're fine. Head Nodon is very good, once again, for stamina meters, loading sections, which is why I'll give him B tier. Because he's actually very janky, but he is good for making stuff like a HUD. And Nodon, I hate it. Oh, you use a Pro Controller? Too bad. These things suck so much. I hate it. Sure, there's a video on Dave Nodon once again. He tells you how to make a grabbing mechanic without using hand Nodon, which is so much nicer. I tried finding one on Oribloop and he's like, oh, just using hand Nodon. That's completely useless. These guys would have been an easy S tier if they weren't motion controls. Alright, so that is the full tier list. I just gotta give you a better view. There it is in all its beauty. I'm assuming you don't agree with me completely. I'm sure some of these Nodons I'm completely using wrong. But save and download. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm Luke. I have a pet chameleon named Godzilla Jr. I'll see you on our next Kaiju adventure.